Well, what up, ladies and gentlemen? And yes, welcome to a very beautiful, beautiful Saturday afternoon. And here I am at the park just relaxing and chilling. And I just made my video of Saturn in Libra here as well, but which I'll upload hopefully tomorrow. But today I wanted to talk to you guys about Navamsa chart. Seems like I've already made the video on Navamsa chart. You know exactly what it is and how to study it, but I still see you guys having some questions on it, and I wanted to clarify those things, okay, about Navamsa chart. The very first thing though I'm going to say is that many of you guys are like, in your 20s, in your early 20s and teens, 18, 19, even 15, who are wanting to learn astrology, wanting to know what about the Navamsa chart, what's happening. The very first thing I would say to that is that if you are under 28, looking at your chart, whether you're trying to test Western astrology or Vedic astrology, and we're trying to compare those two, I feel it's really not that useful for you, because you have not really developed into your personality. You have not really developed into you have not come into your own. When you are in your 21, 22, even 25, not until your Saturn return, you really are not in your element. And so when you are experiencing life, when you are your teenager and you're looking at your horoscope, you're like, oh my God, I'm not this. Oh my God, this is so not me. Oh my God, I'm not Saturn in Leo. I'm Saturn in Cancer for sure. I'm not this, I'm not that. That's because you're discovering yourself. You're in a discovering stage. You're a tree who is becoming an adult tree so you can give fruits. You're in that developmental stage where you do not know your personality. As much as you know your personality, you do not know your personality. I was totally different when I was a teen, when I was in my 20s, versus what I am now. So I always advise people to really look at your chart, especially divisional charts, after you're 28, and especially in your 30s, because that's when you really understand who you are and exactly why planets are doing what they're doing. Okay, but aside from that, the Navamsa chart. What is the Navamsa chart? Navamsa chart is the divisional chart that really shows the strength of your planets. It's called the D9 chart in Vedic astrology, and Navamsa chart is something that is used. It should be used all the time, especially after the age of 28, to see what your planets are doing, how they're really going to be reacting. You see, the main birth chart is like a it's like a television, okay? It's like a radio. But the D9 chart is the signal. How powerful is your signal? Are you getting the high definition channels, or are you getting those antenna channels where you have to adjust the thing to see something? That's what Navamsa chart is. And the thing that you have to realize is that the D1 chart, with your main birth chart, is like your youth. It shows what you are developing into, and the D9 is what you develop into, like what you're developing into and what you develop into. So D9 is the core ground that you become at the age of 35 onwards, or 30 onwards, is what the D9 chart really shows. That okay, so. And here's another thing, before I even go any deeper, never just look at one chart. Never look at the D9 alone and read that after the age of 28. No, that's again a useless thing. It's like looking at a signal without the TV, or looking at the TV without the signal. You always need them together to understand yourself, to watch something, to watch some programming about yourself. Okay, so that's one thing. Never look at the D9 chart alone. Some astrologers do that. That's absolutely wrong. Okay, second, D9 chart doesn't have any degrees, doesn't have any nakshatras. Okay, so it is what it is by planets and sign and house placement. Third, D9 chart has yogas in there. It has conjunctions. It has aspects. Don't just think like some astrologers are like, no, you don't read any of these things in D9 chart. No, that's wrong. Kapiel Raaj will tell you the most important and the most amazing Vedic astrologer in the world, Kapiel Raaj, Kapiel Raaj himself will tell you that you must read all divisional charts exactly the way you read the D1 chart. So if you're going to read an aspect or Raj Yoga or Arishta Yoga or Kendrum Yoga, or Kendrum Dosha, you better read that in the Navamsa chart as well. Because of whatever the person's main chart is, that's what they are experiencing in their youth. D9 chart is what it makes of them. But even at the age of 35, you're still gonna look at what they are on surface. What we are on surface is the D1 chart. What we are beneath, what we act like, what we produce into the world is the D9 chart, which I recommend you read that after the age of 28, because after the age of 28 is when you truly know yourself. So if I do a consultation, or if somebody does a consultation of somebody who's 20 years old, and I can clearly say this now from my very first consultation from an astrologer other than my uncle, to what they said about who I was at the time was accurate, but what they say I will become was like, well, how can I be that way? How can I do that? That's not me. So that's what it develops into. It develops into something that you are not ready for yet, and something that it's coming, and you will understand it once you're 28. And after, especially when I was 30, 31, that's when I really understood that, wow, my D9 chart has really come into life, because it's totally different than what I thought my life would be. So this is why it's so important. The later you look at your chart, the better. Because if you're 20 and 18 and you're looking at planets, because I get these emails all the time, like, oh, well, my Saturn in Vedic astrology is this and Western astrology is that, and I'm totally that Western astrology sign. And it's just, once they come into their element, that's, if they would study that, then it would be a totally different, analysis of what they saw when they were 20. And plus, the D9 chart is so important that even if your Saturn is in Leo and you feel you're not acting like it's in Leo, well, you better look at your Saturn in the D9 chart. What if in the D9 chart it's in the sign of Aries? What if in D9 chart it's in the sign of Taurus? So these are the things that especially matters. But the way you would study a D9 chart, okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say Saturn is in Libra in the D1 chart, and in D9 chart it's in the sign of Aries, debilitated. So when you're growing up, when you are in your youth, when you are even all throughout your life, on surface you feel like everybody should get a fair deal. I wanted to do business with other people who will be fair to me. I want to, uplift societies, and I want to bring a change into the world. That's who I am. But the result of that, though, is totally different, because your Saturn is debilitated in the D9 chart. And if when it's debilitated, what will happen is you will end up getting cheated by a lot of people. You will never be able to get a fair business deal. You will never be able to feel like, oh my God, I'm bringing a change into the world, because I'm always just getting cheated on and I'm never getting a fair deal. It seems like the law is out to get me. Anytime I do something, the government is after me. Screw this. So what happens is, with that frustration, then that Saturn starts to think like a debilitated Saturn. It may try to go around a business deal, cheat around the business deal to make a deal. Or if they don't do that, if let's say Saturn doesn't have any malefic aspect in the D9 chart, but it's in the sign of Aries, this person will try to keep wanting to make a change, and the change will just be so hard to come by. Like, instead of doing this much work, they'll get this much result off of it. But let's reverse that situation. Let's say Saturn was in Aries in the D1 chart and it's in Libra in the D9 chart. But let's say if it exalted in the D9 chart, then what happens is that all your life, especially in your youth, before your Saturn return, you work a lot. You do everything right and nothing goes right for you. You put in the effort and the discipline, and you're putting everything into something, and it's just not happening. Your discipline and your organization skills are not there. You try to organize something, but it's just not. It's always disorganized, and so your plans never go through. But as you learn those lessons in your youth, by the time you're 30, 32, 34, you're taking those lessons that your debilitated Saturn taught you, and now you know exactly what to do in your next business deal. So now the exalted Saturn comes into play of your Navamsa chart. And that exalted Saturn says, okay, I exactly know what happened in the last time I made this deal. Let me do this time. So what happens is they start to make the right deals. They start to reap the results of their labor. And that's what happens with that exalted Saturn in the D9 chart, is that the signal becomes strong. It's sort of like a regular TV signal. It becomes a high definition signal where they're from this much of work, they're getting this much of results. Where early on in their stage in life, they were doing this much of work and getting this much of results. And so that's how you would read. So let's take another example. Let's say Venus debilitated in your D1 chart, and it's exalted. Most of the time it's exalted in the Navamsa chart in the sign of Pisces. So how would you read this when you're studying your own chart? Debilitated Venus in your early youth, until your developmental stage is finished at the age of 28, you will have a lot of heartbreaks. You will run into people who will cheat you in love and romance. Your relationship with any kind of relationship will not work out because you will look too much into it. You will be too focused into the details of the relationship than to look at the broader picture of relationship and love. In early on life, you'll be very hard to get type of person. Like, you will not be so reluctant to fall for somebody, not really into the whole romantic scene, because you're just very analytical and serious. You're like, no. The relationship is this. Because of the fact I've been cheated so many times, screw this. This is what a relationship is. So until you're 28, 30, you experience this debilitated Venus, where you're looking into things too much in a relationship. You're very realistic about love and romance. You don't believe in that hoo-la-la of, those esoteric romance. And people will come into your life. They will not last for too long. You may even end up getting a divorce if you get married too early. But when your 30s come in, when after the age of 28, especially between 28 and 32, your brain structure regarding relationships and love will start to change. You will start to be more open to love. You will start to automatically attract people who will give you a spiritual type of love, more than realistic based love. You will be one of those people who will suddenly realize that no, love is the answer. I need to love everybody equally. Everybody is my soulmate. And what happens is that after a lot of heartbreaks, after a lot of mishaps in a relationship, you suddenly find the best relationship in the world, which is you. You start to love yourself more. You start to respect yourself more. And when that happens, you start attracting people who will be there for a long haul, who will be giving you the true form of love that you need. So later on in life, you find that stable relationship that helps you excel in life. So that's how you would read a divisional chart from a debilitated to an exalted perspective. Now, your Venus can be debilitated and it might be neutral in the D9 chart. A debilitated Venus you will experience those things, but it'll become balanced by the time you're 30, 35. If Venus is debilitated and it's in sign of Gemini or Cancer in the D9 chart, then you'll find a far more balanced relationship. But if Venus is damaged in the D1 chart and the D9 chart is itself, like it's sitting with Rahu or Ketu and it's in the sign of Scorpio, or just debilitated again, then you will run into those problems, and those problems will get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you will not try to find the long-lasting love. But here's another thing. If Venus is debilitated in the D1 chart and D9 chart, it's what's known as Vargottama Venus. then that Venus is becoming strong. It's able to take the reality of life and have a very realistic and a very business-like relationship in their life with their spouse and still deal with it. It'll still happen, but you just don't want Venus to be damaged by malefic planets in D9 chart if it's Vargottama. See, that's another thing. If it's in the same sign, you don't want the D9 one to be more damaged than what it is in the D1 chart. But this is how you should look at your chart, especially after 30. But if you're looking at it from the age of 20, then the D9 chart is really not coming into play because you're not mature enough yet. The planets haven't said that you're mature enough to start realizing who you truly are. Some people do. And that's another thing. Your maturity age is different. You can be mature and find success at the age of 15 or find success at the age of 42, but again, like one might receive money at the age of 12, like Justin Bieber, but his relationships will suffer till he's 35, 36. All these angles have to be seen. So if you see Justin Bieber or some famous celebrity enjoying his life at the age of 15, you got to look at their other aspects too. Sure, their money karma is good from their D9 and D1 chart, but what about their relationship karma? What about their health karma? What about their sudden accident karma? What about their studies and knowledge and spirituality? What about those karma? Those might be damaged. They might be suffering through that, and then that's why most of these celebrities go into drugs rehab, because they're not able to deal with those other things. They're not mature enough to deal with those other things, and then money comes and goes. So that's how you read a D9 chart. That especially don't read it in the early age of time. When you come into your senses in your early 30s, that's when you look at the D9 chart and all the other divisional charts. Oh my God, how did I end up here? Well, I ended up here because my card was full at the park and I had to come back home and download everything and then erase it and record it again. So yes, let's finish this off. So as you saw these examples of the D9 chart, anytime you look at a planet, judge it in the D1 chart exactly the way you would judge it in the D9 chart, And one thing I need to also show you guys is the Shadbala, the sixfold strength. Like there's 6 category you use to determine if a planet is strong or if a planet is weak. That same Shadbala concept you should use in the divisional chart, in the D9 chart, D10 chart, D7 chart, whatever chart is there. You would want to use all these concepts there. So once you know that it's Shadbala concept of is the planet strong or weak, then you can determine, okay, this is where it's placed in the Navamsa chart. This is what sign is placed in. Its dispositor is placed here. So okay, so even though my planet is debilitated in the D1 chart, in the D9 chart, it's in a lot better condition. So this is what's going to be happening once I come into my maturity. But remember, even at the age of 50, you're still being impacted by the D1 chart on surface. You're still going to come up with people who are going to want to cheat you. But what's going to happen is, because of the D9 chart maturity, you'll be able to detect, oh, this person here to deceive me. Let me, shrug them off. Let me run away from them. So you'll be able to do that. But you will always come to the situations of D1 chart. So don't think you're going to get away from them. But because of your planetary position in the D9, it'll be able to help you and protect you from those D1 situations. That's what it's about. It's about learning your lessons in the D9 chart because of the D1 chart. All right. So guys, this was my small analysis again on the D9 chart and how to read them. Hopefully this has given you a better idea, and you'll get a much better idea once I teach you Shadbala in the coming months or so. So if you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And if you want to know where your planets are placed in the D1 and D9 chart, check out the links below. Check out my book there, Astrology at the Speed of Light and Conjunctions at the Speed of Light. And when you get these 2 books, I will send you the link to look at your own chart. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.